watching Big Brain Energy.
Okay, so you've heard about changes in demand or changes in supply, but dude, I don't even really understand it. Like, why do demand and supply change? How do I know which curve to move? It's so confusing. I don't get which curve I'm meant to move and in what direction. Don't stress. By the end of this video, you'll know the answer to your woes. The supply curve shows the amount of something that businesses would like to sell. An increase in supply means that we shift the supply curve to the right. We label it S2. We can draw in the new equilibrium where the new supply curve crosses over the demand curve. We label this P2 and Q2, which is at a lower price and a higher quantity. A decrease in supply is where the supply curve shifts to the left, resulting in a higher equilibrium price, P2, and a lower quantity, Q2. Let's have a look now at the things that increase and decrease supply. Firstly, lower production costs. Honestly, the majority of the NCEA exam questions relate back to cost of production. This just means how much it costs the business to make the thing that they're selling. If it becomes cheaper for the business to make that thing, then they can increase their supply. For example, the price of raw materials decreases, which refers to the things that you need to make the product. Like for a cake, the raw materials are flour, egg, sugar. If the price of sugar decreased, then you can increase your supply of cake. Same for if the price of your labour decreases, meaning you have to pay your workers less, then you can afford to supply more of your stuff. The next scenario is improved technology. If some new technology comes out that lets you produce your products more efficiently, then you can increase your supply. For example, there might be an AI tool that comes out and can speed up some of the process, allowing you to produce more stuff. Supply also increases when businesses have to pay less tax, because now they have more money which they can use to make their stuff. Or when the government offers subsidies to businesses, they make it cheaper for them to produce the stuff so then they can increase their supply. When we talk about the overall supply in a market, like all the cafes selling coffees, for example, then there could be an increase in supply when there are new businesses that start up in the market. Say if 10 new coffee shops opened up in Wellington, then the supply of coffee increases in Wellington. Future expectations. If sellers expect their prices to fall in the future, then they would want to sell more now, while they are still making a good profit. And lastly, the weather. This is something that they like to use in the test. Think about how the weather affects things like farming. If there's a period of really good weather, for example, then a farmer might be able to grow more crops. Now we'll look at the things that can decrease supply. It's mostly just the opposite. Higher production costs. If the price of the inputs that you need to produce the item increases, then you can't afford to produce as much. So, like if the minimum wage increases, for example, then you have to pay your workers more, so your cost of production increases, so you can't supply as much. Increased tax. If a business has to pay more tax, then they don't have as much money to spend on making their products. Or if the government provides less subsidies to the business, then they have to pay more, so they can't produce as much. Decreased number of sellers. If there are a bunch of cafes that close down, then the supply of coffee decreases, for example. Future expectations. If sellers expect their prices to rise in the future, then they would want to sell less now and wait until it's more profitable. Bad weather and natural disasters. This is something that they like to ask about in the exam. There are natural disasters that happen and affect a business. Like if there is a drought, then the supply of corn might decrease. Or if there is a flood, it might wash out some crops. Or if something happens to a factory, like it catches on fire, then the business can't make their stuff to sell. And lastly, stricter regulations. This means that the government creates new laws which make it more difficult for businesses to do things, so then they can't produce as much. Alright, and that's most of the things that can affect the supply curve. Let's try and consolidate this new understanding with some practice questions. Illustrate the effect of an increase in supply on the graph below. Here's the answer. The supply curve shifts to the right. Illustrate the effect of a decrease in supply on the graph below. Here's the answer. The supply curve shifts to the left. Illustrate the effect of an increased minimum wage on the graph below. An increased minimum wage will raise the cost of production for a business and therefore the supply decreases. Illustrate the effect of a tax break on businesses on the graph below. When businesses have to pay less tax, they can afford to produce more, so the supply curve increases. Illustrate the effect of an increase in the price of milk on the market for coffee. Milk is something that cafes need to make their coffees. It's a raw material. When the price of milk increases, then it's more expensive for the cafe to make coffees, so the cost of production increases. So the supply decreases, shifting to the left. Illustrate the effect of a flood ruining lettuce crops on the market for lettuce. When there is a flood, this may ruin the lettuce crops, so the supply of lettuce decreases, shifting to the left. Illustrate the effect of a new AI technology which can make it easier for businesses to serve their customers. If there is a new AI tool which makes it easier for businesses to serve their customers, then businesses can spend more time doing other things, and so increase their production. So supply increases, shifting the curve to the right. Alright, that's everything for this third video in our series. Next we'll be looking at how these changes in demand and supply impact producer and consumer surplus. So check that out if you're taking the 3.1 exam. The internet is saturated with American-based videos. If you found this video useful and you're doing economics in New Zealand, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to our channel. It really does make a difference to the algorithm, and it allows these videos to reach those who need it. And as always, feel free to leave comments down below with any questions you have about the content, or if you have suggestions on what we should cover next. See you next video for more big brain energy.